Evil is a term that many people either refuse to use in its entirety or use very sparingly because the morality discussion is so gray. It's not something that people can argue honestly, because if they become convinced they are wrong, it leads them to the logical conclusion that they are at least a somewhat immoral person. Although, despite all that grayness, I think there are certain actions, when perpetrated with certain intentions or lack thereof, that can definitively be called evil. Let me give you a quick example. 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, torture a person with a mental disability. They threaten him at knife point, cut him with it on the forehead, force him to crawl on his hands and knees, force him to drink toilet water, slap him, cut up his clothes, tie him up and put tape over his mouth, and force him to kneel at their feet, and live streamed it on Facebook. I'm not going to show the video here, but there are a few links in the description that will direct you to it. YouTube has begun taking these videos down. I'm not here to blame anyone but the people who committed this offense. I'm not here to blame organizations. I'm not here to blame wings of the political spectrum. I'm not here to blame races. That's not where my mind is. Things like this happen when we start to think like that. People stop becoming people, and they become the left, the right, the whites, the blacks, and it allows for dehumanization to take place. They're all just excuses given for hating people you've never met, or never interacted with, or know nothing about. You're no longer an individual. You're simply an outgrowth of some concept made manifest in some not quite as human as you form. You can see this when the attackers say, "Fuck white people." They say the word people, but they don't actually mean the word people. They don't treat them like people, at least. At the very least, they think that their victim is a lesser form of person than they are, and so they feel justified in treating him like some sort of worm. If these people aren't sociopaths, then they certainly act like sociopaths when given the slightest justification. One wonders if they would have thought these actions were justified if they were doing it based on the fact that the man has mental issues. I wonder if they'd have the same clear conscience if they witnessed this while their partners in crime screamed, "Fuck retards." I can't imagine what it was like for this man, to be humiliated live on Facebook and have the ability to do nothing but beg for mercy and obey the people who decided that he was their plaything that day. They drank and ate snacks while they watched this man be mortified, as if it were some sort of television show that they desperately wanted to catch. I mean, hey, why not live stream this hilarious event to the world, right? Let other people join in on finding pleasure in this man's suffering along with me. If they aren't total sociopaths, they probably go to sleep at night thinking that they're good people. I don't know what their standard for good is, but I know that hardly anyone actively thinks of themselves as evil. Or at least those cases are very rare, and the people don't much care that they are evil. Of course, there's the stray person who runs interference for actions like these. When one discusses this kidnapping and torture, inevitably, someone who has abandoned their conscience will say, "Duh, why don't you get over this like black people have to get over hundreds of years of slavery?" Or, "Funny how white people are all mad about the Chicago incident but don't give a shit about slavery," or something stupid like that. These are terrible people. These are the people who would be a laughing bystander if they witnessed this in person. They've already submitted themselves to hate. They've decided that their hate is justifiable because of other horrific actions taken by other people that this country did its best to remedy. We had a civil war over this shit. Many white ancestors walked through the gates of hell to secure the right for black people to be free. Of course, there are nuances. Not everything the Northern Army did was pretty, glorious, or even justified, but you get the idea. Many white ancestors in Athens, Tennessee besieged their own town because a black man was shot for trying to vote. Many white ancestors marched with Martin Luther King Jr. and the Freedom Riders in order to combat widespread racism, not only in the hearts of their fellow man, but in the legal system itself. But they erase those people because they aren't convenient. In their minds, the only actions a white person can undertake are acts of evil or acts of repentance, and the only actions a black person can undertake are acts of virtue and acts of vengeance. White people can't do good, and black people can't do evil in their moral framework. The second you think that you can't do anything bad, it becomes far more likely that you will do bad things. You can tuck yourself in at night and have a clear mind while tortured screams come from one room over. This is why I will never consider you, the perpetrators in question, not human, even in a metaphorical or hyperbolic sense, because you are human. You are the underbelly of humanity. You are what people have the ability to become. You're a human example. You represent the worst of us. I'm not some moral paragon either. I've made mistakes, but this is not what counts in my mind as a mistake. A mistake requires a certain type of regret, and I don't think you have the capacity to regret anything, except in the sense that it inconveniences you. You'll regret this action, but only because it landed you in jail, not because you mocked, tortured, physically abused, and mentally abused a person with a mental disability. In my experience, those who are pretty slow in the head due to some sort of disability, a lot of the time, have some of the quickest drawn and easily obtainable unconditional love that exists in human society. In my elementary school, there was a kid who had a mental disability of some type, and he would constantly walk around asking complete strangers to be his friend. This isn't something we do as people who have healthy brains, because we're either too nervous to talk to strangers, we recognize that leading with that statement is just awkward for others, and or we understand that there are bad people out there who would not make good friends. But that type of innocence is beautiful, in a way, despite its accuracy or inaccuracy. And it's quite possible that you robbed someone of that. It's possible that you robbed someone of the idea that people are generally decent. You may have completely crushed someone's inner idealist. And for that, you will never be forgiven. By me, at least. Goodbye, and still have a wonderful day. We need your wonder.